Hello there, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan, and the teaser trailer for Andor is out. And the first thing I have to say here is that the music just felt off. I'm not going to play much of it out of fear of copyright. But the upbeat rock and roll guitar, the fast style cutting that matches the beat of the music, it's a good trailer overall. I mean, if you're in the profession, it definitely does the job of making viewers excited. But if we remember anything about the last season of Andor, we know that the show is nothing like this. It's not lighthearted. There are very few upbeat moments, and the action that exists carries a lot of gravity and seriousness with it. Everything in the first season of Andor was methodical. But I looked up the song a bit more from the trailer. It's called The Revolution Starts Now by Steve Earle, and the title and lyrics are kind of perfect for this moment in Star Wars history. Also, I kind of like the idea of rebel fighters who are mostly from the Outer Rim, where, people tend to live a little closer to the dirt, are listening to some rock and roll music while fighting the powers that be. It is kind of fitting in that way. And now that I think about it, it makes sense to release a more upbeat teaser trailer like this for the second season of Andor, because we all know that Andor, despite probably being one of the best stories in Star Wars ever, was poorly received because, let's be honest, who cares about a character whose own story is just a side story to the main Skywalker saga? It's not a good sell. I'm actually surprised they even made this. And then there's the other factor, the first 3 episodes of Andor were kind of slow. It's all world building and character development until episode 3, and that's not what Star Wars generally is. It might pain some people to hear this, but Star Wars is kind of like junk food culturally speaking. Light on substance and heavy on special effects and crazy action and dueling. Now, obviously, you and I, we know that there are gems hidden in the junk food of Star Wars. There's some really amazing stories. And of course, the overall galaxy is just, like nothing else. And so Andor did really bad from a ratings perspective. And even though it slowly gained traction amongst fans, it's still kind of a huge financial failure, which makes me a sad panda. This is what I want to see in Star Wars in the future. I want this kind of content. And so, yeah, if Andor Season 1 was too slow, I can see why Disney is really worried about Season 2 of Andor being perceived as the same thing. And they definitely are trying to amp it up a little bit with this trailer. I really hope they spend the right amount of advertising money this time around so that people actually know this show is coming out. And here's the thing. It's not BS. This isn't some cheap marketing ploy like trying to get Star Wars fans to watch a show or a movie because their old favorite characters happen to be in it. Andor Season 2 is going to be a lot more explosive than the first season. And it makes sense because if Rogue One, a 2-hour action-packed movie with very little downtime, is on one end of the spectrum and Andor Season 1 is on the other end of the spectrum with its slower, more methodical storytelling, then Andor Season 2 is right in the middle with a mixture of both. And this makes sense because Cassian Andor is no longer uncertain about the role he will play in the rebellion. He is committed finally to this whole thing. The Empire is no longer asleep and is now viciously pursuing insurgents all across the galaxy. The Empire is no longer this massive, relatively bland bureaucratic state that is slowly drowning people in tyranny, right? Luthen Rael has talked about this. He set things in motion, and it's going to get bad. We're going to see Palpatine descend into madness, and things are going to get brutal. More importantly, while Season 1 of Andor covers the events of one single year, Season 2 of Andor is going to cover 5 years. And so we'll see a much larger transformation between episodes, new locations, new players. Everything from the looks of it will be bigger, larger, and more exciting, which, is good, right? Especially in the capable hands of Tony Gilroy's team. Although, originally they were going to do 5 seasons, which like, that would have changed everything, right? So let's take a closer look at the trailer now and the individual scenes and see if we could figure out more things about what's going to happen. Right away in the beginning of the trailer, we see Andor in a few different locations, a few different costumes with different hair. The first shot is the one that keeps coming up in the footage. It's some kind of attack on a building that's guarded by Imperials. Andor and his operatives are all pretty well dressed and well groomed. This is some kind of financial or government district. By the looks of it. But yeah, an explosion sets things off, and it's probably a distraction or something, or for a heist or some other activity, I believe. Although I have some theories that maybe Andor and his crew don't even know this explosion is about to happen, and this has something to do more with the partisans, but we'll talk about that later. Then we see Andor in a brown coat. He looks to be walking in some kind of, medical facility. It kind of looks like Kaminoan almost, or it could be the inside of some kind of secret Imperial research facility. Who knows? I do have to say the brown coat he's wearing gives me Separatist vibes, a callback to Cassian's past, maybe. Then we have Andor with a hood and cloak, like he's doing some clandestine work. This getup really reminds me of what he wears in that first episode of the first season. Then we have this shot of a figure killing an Imperial Guard, most likely Imperial Army or an ISB. The building definitely looks government here. I'm going to guess that this isn't Andor doing the shooting because they seem a little more slight in build. Maybe this is Bix Kayleen. Hopefully she's recovered from hearing the screams of terrifying baby aliens. Because we do see someone like her later on in the trailer with Andor in a Coruscant-like environment, and she's confirmed to be in the show. In the next shot, we see Andor strutting through the airfield on Yavin 4, looking a lot like he did when Rogue One came out a decade ago. I'm thinking that these first scenes basically are giving us a look at the 4 3-episode arcs that are going to make up the second season. This is why Andor looks so different in all of these scenes. I'm guessing it's going to be like, 4 BBY, 3 BBY, 2 BBY, 1 BBY, and then Rogue One. Then we have the shot of Andor wearing a red Imperial uniform with some kind of harness. Very interesting. Not many personnel in the Empire get to wear red, but those who do are generally, pretty big deal, like a royal guardsman that surround and protect Palpatine, or maybe some kind of pilot ace. That's what I thought this originally was, because, the harness he's wearing kind of looks like it's a part of a pilot uniform. And in the next few scenes, we do see this more agrarian world, maybe somewhere in the Outer Rim. And Cassian is piloting what looks like a never-seen-before TIE fighter. I believe it is a TIE Avenger, but we've just never seen it in live action. We have seen in previous footage that some kind of TIE fighter is going to be introduced in the show. And this really has me excited because the few times we see Imperial starships and Andor, Tony Gilroy does it superbly. Like, there's real weight to the Imperial military in Andor. They're not a joke. They are terrifying. Remember how terrifying that flyby from the TIE fighter is on Aldani? That's probably the best representation of just how powerful a starfighter is compared to a person standing on the ground. And just well done, Andor. Well done. We also have those awe-inspiring shots of the Imperial-class Star Destroyer over Jeddah in the Rogue One movie. And, of course, that whole incident between Luthen Rael and the Cantwell-class Arrestor cruiser. Everything from, just how things proceed to just the CGI and the weapon systems they use are incredibly grounded in reality, believable, and also fun to watch. So, yes, I want to see Andor do a low strafing run on some kind of vehicle in this TIE fighter. I want to see guided rockets fly out there and blow things up. I expect the same level of quality from Tony Gilroy in this series as we saw in the first one. So, yes, very excited. Saw Gerrera is back, and he is as mad as ever. His hair has finally grown to its full length, just like how he was before his death in Rogue One. Anytime Forrest Whitaker is on the screen, it's a good time, especially when he portrays Saw Gerrera, probably one of the craziest and least understood characters in Star Wars. Then we have seen Mon Mothma with a slight slump in her shoulders as she continues to carry on her double life. It seems like the Trandrillans in the background are getting festive and merry, maybe doing some lines of spice in some kind of pagan celebration. She clearly is not thrilled. Remember before the end of Season 2, she defects from the Empire. And so that means this scene is probably shot in the first 2 arcs of the season, because by the 3rd and 4th arc, she should be gone. Luthen Rael looks deathly and older here. It's been clear from day one that if Luthen Rael does his job correctly, that what happens to him really won't matter at all. He's already a dead man. His ego, his personality are all overridden by a strong desire to see the Empire fall. It would make sense for Luthen Rael to take a back seat now that kind of his job is done, instigating the Empire to crack down on the rebellion, but it would be really sad not to see more of Skellen Skarsgård, because, he's, again, the presence on screen. This show, by the way, if you guys have not seen Andor, it is just loaded with talent. Guys, they really casted this thing well. Talking about talent, we also have Orson Krennic. He's back. I keep forgetting that he's in this show. Ben Mendelsohn is going to be a treat to watch as well. A cool side note here, look at the Death Star. The main weapon is still not complete in this scene, so this must be a few years before the Rogue One series starts. If you've read the novels that lead up to Rogue One, especially Cataclysm, you know that Orson Krennic is in this great struggle to get Galen Erso to do the damn research and build the damn super laser. Ethics and morality be damned. Which makes me wonder, could we see a surprise cameo from Mads Mikkelsen? Or is that one too many Scandinavians for the budget? I would definitely like to see him again. Next shot is an interesting one. We see a dead individual in the foreground. I want to say that this is a rebel of some kind, maybe. But what is clear is in the background are a squadron of T-65B X-Wings flanking what looks like a YV-865 Aurora freighter from Krillin Engineering. And guess what? The livery on the X-Wings are not Rebel Alliance. Well, technically they're not. They belong to the Cavern Angels, a unit of X-Wings operated by Saw Gerrera's partisans. They apparently stole those X-Wings from an Imperial Incom facility right off of the assembly line, and they were some of the first X-Wings to be used against the Empire. Although, judging by the dead guy on the ground in this shot, we could be witnessing some green-on-blue incident. We know that when Mon Mothma takes control of the Alliance to restore the Republic, she'll butt heads with Saw Gerrera, and eventually, the two groups are going to distance themselves. Next, we have Andor in a very strange-looking blaster. It kind of looks modular, like that A280 heavy pistol he used in Rogue One, that also has the barrel and stock extension, turning a pistol into a marksman weapon. This thing is a lot uglier. It kind of has like a pistol revolver grip and a scope that clearly is built for a revolver, not like a longer weapon. The entire front part of the weapon looks detachable. Maybe this is a concealed weapon that he had to take apart to smuggle past security. The scene in the background looks a lot like that opening scene we talk about where the explosion happens in front of that public building with all those Imperial guards. So again, it makes sense that he would have a concealed weapon that he can extend into a marksman rifle. I have no idea who this woman here is in this scene. Maybe you guys know. Is it his sister he was looking for in the first episode? That started this whole mess in the first place. That's a plot point, by the way, that was never really revisited, so I hope they do close off that thread in Season 2. Next up, we have Brasso, the bricklayer. Well, technically he's a salvager, but he's a savant with bricks. You know, bro should start a Lego building YouTube channel or something. Next up, we have these stormtroopers who look really cool, honestly. They definitely are not regs. I mean, no helmets is a big no-no for the Corps. That's how the ISB monitors their troops and disciplines them. You also have a lot less armor on these guys, aside from some upper body protection. It looks like they've removed all of their lower armor. They clearly are exchanging protection for mobility. They also seem to have extra ammo pouches around their belt. It's a high-speed, low-drag setup. It's very clear these guys are, ready to do some serious CQC fighting here. Plus, you got this Dr. Phil-looking mofo with the non-regulation grooming standards. He's definitely been snapping necks since the Clone Wars. Always be afraid of the old man in these kind of units. And then notice the wet-behind-the-ears officer in white with the tracking sensor and motion sensor at the back. He looks like an ISB agent fresh from the academy. Which makes sense because thanks to the Aldhani heist, now the ISB are on the forefront of the war against the rebels. They basically have all sorts of special powers. And they also have special units and auxiliary units that they can use for their deniable ops. I really got to say, whenever Tony Gilroy adds anything new to the lore like these guys, I usually really vibe with it. Well, except for that time he gave those prison guard snowboard boots. That was lazy. Now we get this shot of Dedra, who looks a little worse for wear. I mean, the whole screw up on Ferrix is not going to play well for her back at the ISB headquarters. She stuck her neck out there. She also, thumbed her nose at a bunch of her colleagues, and, now she's going to get burnt. She will suffer. But as far as we can tell, at least she's still in the ISB. This next shot of Orson Krennic is interesting because it actually looks like he's talking to Mon Mothma, and there's an individual in the background with a blue robe who kind of looks like Davos Skolden, the money launderer. Could be wrong here, but that's definitely an interesting group of people to be hanging out with each other. Next up, we have this TIE fighter in a hangar with its cockpit door slightly ajar, just going ham with the laser cannons. Looks like a freaking MG-34. It's just a continuous stream of fire. Might as well be a laser beam. This TIE fighter is most likely the same TIE fighter we see Andor flying earlier on. I initially thought it was an interceptor, but if you take a closer look at the wings and just the general shape, also the rapid-fire laser cannons, it's clear that it is not a TIE interceptor. TIE interceptors were known for their firepower, but they had wing-tipped laser cannons, and they also had a slightly different shape when it comes to the wings. And so what we're actually looking at here is most likely a TIE Avenger, and we'll probably do a video later on about what exactly a TIE Avenger is. Next, we have another scene of Mon Mothma, probably right before she runs from the Empire. She's acting like someone who's running away from the IRS and creditors and just, max out her last credit card to go on some spiritual awakening retreat/rave. In this shot, we once again see the Corellian YT freighter. It disappears into hyperspace, and we're seeing that from the point of view of an X-Wing. This was a camera angle used a lot in Rogue One. It'll be cool to see the partisans in action a little bit more. Maybe they can redeem themselves and explain why they're always killing civilians. Next up, we're probably in the Senate District in Coruscant, in some kind of party. That contraption that's floating there looks like a holocam, maybe? Or maybe it's one of those annoying 360 cameras that always pops up at weddings and corporate events. We see Davos Golden much more clearly in this picture wearing that same outfit, and in the foreground it's Mon and her not-so-great husband. Maybe these two groups are discussing wedding plans for their kids, which was an official part of the money laundering deal Mon Mothma gets herself into here. It'd be pretty funny if, like, Davos Golden's kid turns out to be great, because Mon Mothma's kid is kind of a shithead. But anyway, next we have K2SO, Cassian's sidekick. This must be after he reprogrammed the security droid, because he doesn't look very, deadly here. Then we have a quick shot of stormtroopers running in formation. Looks like the reverse shot of that one shot where the TIE fighter is shooting at all those troops in the hangar. We then see a woman run towards Cassian and hug him in the next scene. This could be his sister, or maybe it's just Bix again. We have a shot of an Imperial Army trooper specialized for riot control. Next, we have some kind of weird vehicle that we see disabled in the beginning of the trailer. It looks like a road resurfacing vehicle of some kind. Next up, we have Cyril Karn, and he is clearly a civilian now, and he looks like he's doing a lot better than he was before. He's no longer as pale. He has that long, wavy hair. Gone is that tight military-style haircut he had when he was working for Morlana 1. I'm guessing he's risen in the ranks again at the Bureau of Statistics or something. Or maybe, he got rewarded for saving Dedra. Although, I'm not sure how much sway she has at the ISB anymore, considering what happened to her on Ferrix. Now, whatever Cyril Karn is doing, it's very clear that he's about to get sucked back into the world that he got caught into in the first season, because he's clearly at that same rebel ambush we keep talking about. I do have to say, the amount of collateral damage and civilian casualties are quite high from this attack. I wouldn't be surprised if Andor was running an operation and he had nothing to do with the explosion, and this was just, some kind of partisan terror attack that happened at the same time and kind of creates all this chaos. This will definitely lead to a schism between the partisans and the rebels. Okay, in this scene, Melcy is back. He escaped with Cassian from Narkina 5, that crazy prison, and we also see him in Rogue One on Scarif. He's a part of the ground team. And just like in Rogue One, Melcy here is taking cover and also taking some heavy fire. No idea who this chick is, but she's wearing, looks like Senate robes, and she's waving a pistol in the hands, and she's also waving a pistol in the face of what looks like Mon Mothma and a bunch of senators. Could be assassin, could be a disgruntled individual, could be Cassian's sister, again, because we're watching out for her. Then we have this scene of the TIE Avenger just getting taken down by a bunch of stormtroopers, or at least that's what it seems like. I feel like small arms can't really affect a TIE fighter, even if it doesn't have shields. It does seem like this starship is tethered to something, most likely some kind of locking mechanism like we see in The Force Awakens. There is some quick action scenes, Cassian in a firefight, an explosion maybe caused by a concussion grenade, and then it looks like Bix is fighting an Imperial officer. Then we have this mullet guy here, no idea what the hell this is, and of course, Cyril's mom is returning. She's perhaps the most evil character in the entire show, and potentially a Sith Lord. Then we have Ham being Ham, a man of few words, and then finally Saw Gerrera just being weird as usual. He's trying to convince another one of his minions to fight, and he's kind of giving me like Mike Tyson vibes here, like a ferocious guy with kind of a childish demeanor.
You're right here, and you're ready to fight!
There's definitely also some desperation here as the Andoronian descends into the final layers of madness that are clouding his mind. And lastly, Cassian looks suave as usual with a very classy mullet. Overall, I am very excited for the second season of Andor. I might be in the minority on this, but I always believed that this was the direction Star Wars should go in. As much as I like the prequels and their goofiness and drama, there's a reason why everyone loves Empire Strikes Back the most. You need to have some gravity and weight in your story so that the stakes are actually high enough where people are going to care. The fact that I'm so interested in the story of a man who I already know is going to die in a few years is a great sign that Tony Gilroy is doing everything right.